Last night, 17 trucks were found empty on highways across America. Engines running. Doors locked. Drivers vanished. I know where they went. I need to tell you what's driving my truck right now, because it's not me anymore. I'm writing this on a scrap of paper I found in a rest stop bathroom, and I don't have much time. That thing is looking for me, and when it finds me, I'll be gone forever. Let me start from the beginning, when I still thought I was alone in my truck. 3 weeks ago, I was hauling refrigerated meat from a processing plant in Iowa to a distribution center in Michigan. The load was standard, nothing unusual, except for one thing. When I was loading up, one of the plant workers pulled me aside. He looked terrified, his hands shaking as he handed me the paperwork. "Don't open the back," he whispered. "No matter what you hear, don't open it. And drive fast. Get this load delivered before sunrise." I thought he was just being paranoid, maybe worried about the refrigeration failing or something. I signed the papers and hit the road. It was around 10 p.m., and I had about 7 hours of driving ahead of me. The first few hours were normal. I listened to music, drank coffee, watched the mile markers tick by. But around 1 a.m., I started hearing something from the back of the truck. Scratching. Slow, deliberate scratching, like fingernails on metal. I turned down the music, listening carefully. It was definitely coming from the trailer. My first thought was that an animal had gotten into the load somehow, maybe a rat or a raccoon. But the scratching was too loud, too heavy. Whatever was making that sound was big. Then I heard the voice. A woman's voice, muffled but clear enough to understand. "Please let me out. It's so cold. I can't feel my hands anymore." My blood ran cold. There was someone in my trailer. Someone alive, trapped with the frozen meat. I grabbed my CB radio, about to call for help, but then I remembered what the worker had said. "Don't open the back. No matter what you hear." But how could I not? If there was someone in there, they could freeze to death. I pulled over on the shoulder of the highway, grabbed my flashlight, and walked back to the trailer. The scratching got louder as I approached, more frantic. "Please," the woman's voice called out. "I can hear you out there. Please open the door. I'm so cold." I put my hand on the trailer latch, hesitating. Something felt wrong. The voice sounded off somehow, like it was being played through a speaker, artificial and flat despite the pleading tone. But I couldn't just leave someone to freeze. I unlocked the latch and started to open the door. That's when I saw the meat. The trailer was packed with hanging sides of beef, pork, lamb, all frozen solid and swaying slightly from hooks on the ceiling. But there was something wrong with them. They were moving too much, swaying in patterns that didn't match the slight rocking of the trailer. And the meat closest to the door wasn't meat at all. It was skin. Human skin, stretched and preserved, hanging from the hooks like empty costumes. And inside one of them, I could see movement. Something was wearing the skin, filling it out, making it move and sway. The woman's voice came again, but now I could see where it was coming from. A mouth opening in the skin, lips moving, but there was nothing human behind them. Just darkness and something else, something that writhed and pulsed. I slammed the door shut and ran back to my truck, my hand shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I heard pounding on the inside of the trailer, heavy impacts that made the whole truck shake. And voices now, dozens of them, men, women, children, all calling out to me. "Come back. Let us out. We're so cold. We need your warmth. We need your skin." I drove. I drove faster than I've ever driven in my life, pushing my truck to 90 miles per hour, not caring about speed limits or safety. I just needed to deliver this load and get away from whatever was in my trailer. But here's where it gets worse. After about an hour of driving, I heard something new. Footsteps. Inside my cab. Slow, heavy footsteps coming from the sleeper area behind me. I whipped around, shining my flashlight into the sleeper. Nothing there. Just my bed and my bags. but I could still hear the footsteps getting closer. And then I felt it. A hand on my shoulder. Cold, so cold it burned through my shirt. I screamed and swerved, nearly losing control of the truck. When I looked down at my shoulder, I could see the handprint. Not on my shirt, but on my skin underneath, like the hand had reached through the fabric. The CB radio crackled to life. My voice came through the speaker, but I wasn't talking. You opened the door. Even just a crack. That's all we needed. Now we're inside. I grabbed the CB and threw it out the window, but it didn't matter. My voice kept talking, now coming from the sleeper area. We've been looking for new skin. Ours is old, worn out. But yours is perfect. Young, strong. We'll wear it well. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw myself sitting in the sleeper area. An exact copy of me, wearing my face, my clothes, everything. But its movements were wrong, jerky and unnatural like a puppet with tangled strings. It smiled at me with my own face, and I saw that its teeth were too sharp, too many, filling a mouth that opened way too wide. I did the only thing I could think of. I opened my door and jumped. At 90 miles per hour, on a dark highway, I jumped out of my moving truck. I hit the ground hard, rolling and tumbling across the asphalt. I felt bones break, skin tear, but I didn't stop moving. I crawled off the highway into the ditch, watching as my truck kept going, the thing wearing my face visible in the driver's seat now, perfectly in control. I made it to a rest stop on foot. Took me 6 hours of limping and crawling. That's where I am now, hiding in the bathroom, writing this. I called my company, told them my truck was stolen. They said they'd track it down. But here's the thing. They called me back an hour later and said they found the driver. Me. I was delivering the load right now, about 50 miles from the destination. The GPS showed my truck moving normally, and when they called my cell phone, I answered. Or rather, it answered, using my voice. I can hear sirens outside now. The police are here. Someone must have reported a bloodied man hiding in the rest stop bathroom. But I'm not going out there. Because I just looked through the crack in the door, and I saw myself walk in. I'm standing at the sink, washing my hands, wearing my face. And I know when the police get here, they're going to believe him, not me. Because he looks perfect, uninjured, clean. And I look like a crazy homeless person covered in blood and dirt. He's walking toward the bathroom stall now. I can see his shoes under the door. My shoes. And I can hear him talking in my voice, calling out to me. Come out. It's okay. I'm you now. And you can't be two people. So one of us has to go. The door handle is turning. Story 2, the toll booth that weighs your sins. I drove through a toll booth last month that didn't take money. It took something else. Something I can't get back. And now I can feel pieces of myself disappearing, one memory at a time, one feeling at a time, until soon there'll be nothing left but an empty shell that looks like me but isn't. Let me tell you what happened before I forget completely. Before the toll booth takes everything and I become one of the hollow ones. I was driving through Pennsylvania on Route 76, hauling furniture from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia. Standard run, done it 100 times. But that night was different. It was 3:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I checked my phone right before I saw it. The road ahead was empty, just me and the darkness. Then I came around a curve and there it was. A toll booth. But not like any toll booth I'd ever seen. It was old, ancient looking, made of stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. There were symbols carved into the stone, symbols that hurt to look at, that made my eyes water and my head ache. And standing in the booth was a figure in a hooded robe, face hidden in shadows so deep it looked like a hole in reality. I should have known something was wrong. This section of highway didn't have toll booths anymore. They'd been removed years ago, replaced by automated sensors. But I was tired, and my brain wasn't processing things right, so I just slowed down and pulled up to the window like I'd done 1,000 times before. The figure leaned forward, and I still couldn't see its face, just that void of shadow where a face should be. When it spoke, its voice wasn't human. It sounded like wind through empty buildings, like static between radio stations, like the sound bones make when they break. You must pay the toll. I reached for my wallet. How much? Not money. The figure's arm emerged from the booth, and it wasn't an arm at all. It was something else, something that shifted and changed as I looked at it, sometimes looking like pale fingers, sometimes like white worms, sometimes like nothing I could describe. It touched my forehead, and I felt something tear loose inside my skull. You will pay with your memories. The ones you cherish most. The ones that make you human. I felt it happening. My wedding day, watching my wife walk down the aisle, her smile as she saw me waiting, the way my heart felt like it would explode from happiness. That memory just vanished. Ripped out of my head like pulling a photograph from an album. I could still remember that I had gotten married, but I couldn't remember the feeling of it, couldn't see her face clearly, couldn't recall why I'd loved her so much in that moment. Stop! I screamed, trying to pull away. But I couldn't move. The figure's touch had frozen me in place. Please, I'll pay money, I'll give you anything else. There is nothing else, it said, and I felt another memory go. My son's birth. The first time I held him, tiny and red and screaming. The way he'd gripped my finger with his whole hand. The overwhelming surge of love and terror and joy. Gone. Erased. Now when I thought of his birth, it was like reading a fact in a textbook. I knew it happened, but I didn't feel anything about it. The figure pulled its arm back, and I could see what it had taken. Hovering in its palm were glowing orbs, each one containing a memory. I could see them playing out like videos, my wedding, my son's birth, and dozens of others I hadn't even realized were being stolen. My first kiss. The day I got my truck driver's license. Christmas morning when I was 8 years old. All the moments that had shaped me, that had made me who I was, floating in that thing's hand like captured fireflies. Why? I managed to choke out. Why are you doing this? Because this is the toll, it said simply. Every road has a price. Most roads take time, patience, fuel. This road takes pieces of your soul. The memories that matter. The feelings that make you human. And when you've paid enough tolls, when you've lost enough of yourself, you become like me. Hollow. Empty. Existing only to collect from others what was taken from you. It gestured to the side, and I saw them for the first time. Other figures, dozens of them, standing around the toll booth. They looked almost human at first glance, but wrong. Hollow-eyed, moving with mechanical precision, faces blank and emotionless. Former drivers, I realized. People who'd paid this toll so many times that there was nothing left inside them but the need to collect more. The hooded figure released me, and I could move again. The barrier arm lifted. You may pass. But you'll return. Everyone returns to this road eventually. And each time, you'll pay more. Until there's nothing left to pay with. Then you'll join us, collecting tolls forever, trying to fill the emptiness inside with stolen memories that aren't yours and can never truly fill the void. I drove through, my truck shaking because my hands were trembling so badly. In my rearview mirror, I watched the toll booth fade into the darkness, but I could still see the glowing orbs in the figure's hand, my memories, my most precious moments, held captive in that creature's palm. That was 4 weeks ago. Since then, it's been getting worse. I keep losing more memories, more feelings, even though I haven't been back to that toll booth. It's like it opened a hole in my head, and now everything's slowly draining out. Yesterday, I couldn't remember my mother's voice. This morning, I looked at my wife and felt nothing. I know she's my wife, I know I married her, but I can't remember why. I can't access the feelings that used to be there. And the worst part? I'm starting to crave the toll booth. Some twisted part of me wants to go back, wants to pay more, because at least when the memories are being taken, I can see them one last time. At least for a brief moment before they're ripped away, I can feel what they made me feel. And maybe, if I pay enough, if I give up everything, I'll finally stop feeling this growing emptiness inside. I've done research, trying to find others who've encountered this toll booth. I found scattered reports going back decades. Drivers who became emotionally numb, who lost their ability to connect with others, who forgot their own children's names or their parents' faces. Many of them went back to that stretch of highway, looking for the toll booth, willing to pay more, desperate to feel something again, even if it was only the pain of having memories torn away. None of them ever came back. The trucks were found abandoned on Route 76, engines still running, but the drivers gone. Disappeared. Authorities assumed they wandered off and got lost, or maybe committed suicide somewhere their bodies couldn't be found. But I know the truth. They paid the final toll. They gave up everything that made them human, and they joined the hollow ones standing around that stone toll booth, waiting to collect from the next driver who comes through. I'm writing this now because I can feel it happening. The pull to go back. Last night, I drove past the exit for Route 76 and almost took it. My hands moved toward the wheel, ready to turn, craving the toll booth like an addict craves their drug. I forced myself to keep driving, but it's getting harder to resist. I'm forgetting why I should resist. I'm forgetting what I'm trying to hold on to. My wife's name is becoming fuzzy. My son's age. What I had for breakfast this morning. Not just the memory of breakfast, but the ability to care about breakfast, the ability to taste food, to feel hungry, to want anything at all. Soon, I think I'll stop fighting. I'll take that exit, drive to that toll booth, and pay whatever toll is asked. I'll give up the rest of my memories, the rest of my feelings, the last remaining pieces of my humanity. And then I'll stand there with the others, hollow and empty, waiting for the next driver to come through so I can reach out with that shifting, changing arm and tear their memories from their skull, desperate to feel something again, even if it's only secondhand, stolen, unable to truly fill the void. If you drive Route 76, if you're on the road between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia late at night, and you see a stone toll booth that shouldn't be there, don't stop. Don't slow down. Crash through the barrier if you have to, but don't let them touch you. Because they don't want your money. They want you. They want everything that makes you you, and they'll take it piece by piece until you're as hollow as they are. And if you see me there, standing with the others, don't try to help. It'll be too late. I'll be gone, replaced by something that wears my face but has nothing behind the eyes. I'll reach out to collect your toll, and I won't remember that I used to be human. I won't remember my name, my family, my life. I'll only know the hunger, the endless need to take from others what was taken from me, filling a void that can never be filled. The exit is coming up. I can see the sign. Route 76. Every cell in my body is screaming at me to take it. To go back. To pay more. I'm trying to drive past, but my hands are moving on their own, turning the wheel. I don't think I can fight it anymore. If you're reading this, if you find this note in my truck, tell my wife I'm sorry. Tell my son his father loved him, even if I can't remember what that love felt like. And stay away from Route 76. Stay away from toll booths that shouldn't exist. Because some roads take more than time. They take your soul. One memory at a time. One feeling at a time. Until there's nothing left but hunger and shadow and the endless need to collect from others what you've lost. The exit is here. I'm taking it. God help me, I'm taking it. I can see the toll booth ahead, glowing in the darkness. The hooded figure is waiting. And I'm about to pay the rest of what I owe. Story 3. The rest stop where everyone's already dead. There's a rest stop off I-40 in New Mexico where I spent 8 hours last week, and I don't think I was alive the whole time I was there. I think I died somewhere on that highway and didn't realize it until I tried to leave. Let me explain what happened, because I need someone to know, someone to understand before I disappear completely. I was hauling electronics from Albuquerque to Amarillo, a straightforward 6-hour drive I'd done dozens of times. But around hour 3, I started feeling wrong. Not sick, not tired, but wrong. Like something fundamental about my existence had shifted and I hadn't noticed when it happened. I checked my mirrors more than usual, feeling like something was following me, but the highway was empty. Just me and the desert and the setting sun painting everything blood red. Then I blinked, and it was night. Not gradual sunset, not twilight fading to darkness, but instant night, like someone had flipped a switch. 1 second it was 6 p.m. with the sun on the horizon, the next it was full dark and my clock said 11:47 p.m. 5 hours and 47 minutes just gone, vanished, with no memory of driving through them. I pulled over immediately, heart pounding, trying to figure out what had happened. Had I fallen asleep at the wheel? Blacked out? But my truck was still on the road, perfectly centered in my lane, no signs of veering or nodding off. I checked my GPS. I'd covered about 200 miles, the exact distance I should have covered in those missing hours. I'd been driving the whole time, apparently, I just couldn't remember any of it. That's when I saw the rest stop sign. Rest area 1 mile. I needed to stop, needed to figure out what was happening to me. Maybe I was having some kind of medical emergency, a stroke or an aneurysm causing memory loss. I took the exit and pulled into the rest stop. The parking lot was full. Dozens of trucks, all parked neatly in their spaces, all silent and dark. No engines running, no lights on, just rows of trucks sitting there like tombstones in a cemetery. I pulled into an empty space and sat there for a moment, trying to calm down, trying to remember those missing hours. Then I noticed something strange. None of the trucks had company logos. They were all completely blank, no markings, no identification numbers, nothing. Just anonymous trucks in anonymous rows. And looking closer, they all looked exactly the same. Same make, same model, same year, like they'd all rolled off the assembly line together. I got out and walked toward the rest stop building. The air felt thick, harder to breathe than normal, and there was a smell like ozone mixed with something sweet and rotten. The building was lit from inside, fluorescent lights visible through the windows, but when I tried the door, it wouldn't open. Not locked, just wouldn't move, like it was part of the wall rather than a separate door. I walked around to the other entrance. Same thing. The door wouldn't budge. I could see inside through the windows though, and what I saw made my blood run cold. People. Dozens of them. Sitting at tables, standing in lines at vending machines, walking through the hallways. But they weren't moving right. Their movements were too slow, too smooth, like watching a video at half speed. And none of them were looking at each other or interacting. They were just going through the motions, mechanical and precise, like actors who'd forgotten they were supposed to be playing human. I knocked on the window. None of them looked up. I knocked harder, yelling. No response. It was like they couldn't hear me, or like I wasn't really there. I tried my phone to call for help, but it wouldn't turn on. The battery showed full charge, but the screen stayed black no matter what I did. That's when I saw him. A man walking across the parking lot, heading toward one of the identical trucks. He looked normal at first glance, wearing jeans and a trucker jacket, but there was something off about the way he moved. Too fluid, too graceful, like his joints didn't work quite right. I called out to him. Hey, can you help me? Something's wrong with my phone, and the doors won't open. He stopped and turned to look at me. His face was completely blank. No expression, no recognition, just empty eyes staring through me. Then he smiled, but it wasn't a human smile. His lips pulled back too far, showing too many teeth, white teeth that looked sharp in the parking lot lights. "You're new," he said. His voice sounded wrong, like it was being played through a broken speaker. "You haven't realized yet." "Realized what?" I asked, backing away from him. "That you died on the highway. Somewhere between mile marker 147 and 148, something happened. Maybe you fell asleep and drifted off the road. Maybe another vehicle hit you. Maybe your heart just stopped. But you died. And this is where dead drivers end up. this rest stop, this parking lot, forever. I laughed, but it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. That's insane. I'm not dead. I'm standing here talking to you. I can feel my heart beating, I can breathe, I can. Can you? He interrupted. He walked closer, and I could see now that his eyes were slightly clouded, like cataracts, and his skin had a grayish tint. Feel your pulse. Really feel it. Check your breath. Try to remember the last time you felt hungry, or thirsty, or tired. I put my hand to my neck, feeling for my pulse. Nothing. I pressed harder, moved my fingers around trying to find the right spot. Nothing. No heartbeat. No blood moving through my veins. And my breathing, I realized I wasn't actually breathing. My chest wasn't moving. I was standing there with empty lungs, no air moving in or out, and I hadn't even noticed until he pointed it out. No, I whispered. No, this isn't possible. I'm not dead. I can't be dead. Everyone here said the same thing at first, the man said, gesturing to the rest stop building. All those people inside? Dead drivers. All the trucks in this lot? Belong to drivers who died on this stretch of highway. We're stuck here, in this moment, this place. Replaying our final stop forever. Some of us have been here for decades. Some just arrived today. But none of us can leave. The exit ramp only goes one direction. In. Never out. I ran. I didn't care how crazy it sounded, I needed to prove him wrong. I got in my truck, started the engine. How could it start if I was dead? How could I drive if I was dead, and headed for the exit? The man just stood there watching, that horrible smile still on his face. I found the exit ramp and accelerated, my truck picking up speed as I merged back onto the highway. Relief flooded through me. I was getting out. I was escaping. Whatever that place was, I was leaving it behind. But then I saw the sign ahead, rest area of 1 mile. No. That wasn't possible. I'd just left the rest area. I was driving away from it. But there was the sign again, and before I could process what was happening, I was taking the exit, pulling into the parking lot, parking in the exact same space I'd just left. The man was still standing there, still smiling. The loop is usually about 15 minutes, he said. You drive away, you end up back here. Some people try hundreds of times before they accept it. But you'll learn. Eventually, you stop trying to leave. You just accept that this is where you are now. This parking lot, this rest stop, forever. I tried again. And again. And again. Each time, I ended up back in the same parking lot, parked in the same space, with the man standing there watching me with that horrible smile. On my 7th attempt, I tried driving in the opposite direction. Same result. On my 10th attempt, I drove off-road into the desert. The sand turned into the parking lot asphalt before I'd gone 20 feet. After my 15th attempt, I gave up and got out of the truck. The man was still there, patient, waiting. How long have you been here? I asked him. I don't know anymore, he said. Time doesn't work right here. Could be days, could be years. But I remember dying. I remember the moment. I was driving through a dust storm, couldn't see anything, and I didn't realize I'd drifted into the oncoming lane until I saw the headlights right in front of me. That was 1987. Or at least, that's what the date was in the world I left behind. 36 years ago. He'd been trapped here for 36 years, driving in loops, unable to escape, slowly forgetting what it felt like to be alive. And I was going to be here too. Forever. Trapped in this rest stop, this parking lot, replaying the same 15-minute loop for eternity. I've been here for 8 hours now, according to my watch, though time feels wrong, stretched and compressed at the same time. I've tried to leave 43 times. Each time, I end up back in the same parking lot. The other drivers mostly ignore me now. They've seen new arrivals before. They know I'll stop trying eventually, accept my fate, become like them. Walking slowly through the parking lot, going through the motions of being alive even though we're not, trapped in this liminal space between life and death. But I'm writing this down, scratching it onto the walls of my truck with my keys, because I need someone to know. If you're driving through New Mexico on I-40 between Albuquerque and Amarillo, and you see a rest stop around mile marker 147, don't stop. Don't even slow down. Because that's where dead drivers go, and if you stop there, you'll never leave. I'm going to try one more time to escape. Attempt number 44. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe I'll break through the loop. Maybe I'll find a way out. But I don't think I will. I think I'm stuck here, just like all the others. Just like everyone who's ever stopped at this rest stop. We're all dead, all trapped, all driving in endless circles trying to find an exit that doesn't exist. If I don't make it out, if I'm trapped here forever, at least someone will know. At least this message will survive. And maybe, just maybe, it'll warn the next driver before they make the same mistake I did. Before they stop at the rest stop where everyone's already dead, where all the drivers are ghosts, where the loop never ends and the exit only leads back to the beginning. I'm getting in my truck now. Starting the engine. Heading for the exit one more time. But I can already see it in the distance, appearing where it shouldn't be. The sign. Rest area 1 mile. And I know, even before I reach it, that I'll be taking that exit again. That I'll pull into the parking lot again. That the man will be standing there, smiling, welcoming me back. Because this is where dead drivers go. And I'm one of them now. Forever. Story 4, the thing that mimicked my voice. I've been hauling freight for 11 years, and I thought I'd seen everything on the road. Drunk drivers, animals jumping in front of my truck, even a tornado once. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened on Highway 50 through Nevada last October. They call it the loneliest road in America, and now I know why. It's not just lonely. It's cursed. I was driving from Sacramento to Salt Lake City with a load of industrial equipment. The sun had set hours ago, and I was pushing through the darkness, trying to make up time. The highway was completely empty. No cars, no trucks, nothing but me and the endless black desert stretching out on both sides. My headlights cut through the darkness like knives, but they only showed me about 50 feet ahead. Beyond that was just nothing. Around 2:30 a.m., my CB radio crackled to life. Static at first, then a voice. My voice. "Hey buddy, you should probably pull over," it said. I froze. My hands tightened on the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. That was my voice. Not similar. Not close. Exactly my voice, down to the slight rasp I get when I'm tired. What the hell? I whispered, staring at the CB radio like it had just turned into a snake. The voice came back, still mine, but now it sounded amused. "Something's wrong with your left rear tire. You're gonna want to check that out before it blows." I looked at my gauges. Everything was normal. Tire pressure was fine. No warning lights. But my heart was hammering in my chest because that voice knew things. It knew I was alone. It knew I was scared. "Who is this?" I demanded, grabbing the CB handset. No response. Just static. I tried to convince myself it was some kind of prank. Maybe another trucker nearby was messing with me, somehow faking my voice with some kind of technology. But I hadn't passed another vehicle in over an hour. There was nobody out here. I kept driving, my eyes darting between the road and the CB radio, waiting for it to crackle to life again. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Nothing. Maybe it was over. Then I saw someone standing on the side of the road. A figure, just barely visible in my headlights. As I got closer, I could make out more details. It was a man in trucker clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt, waving his arms frantically like he needed help. My first instinct was to pull over. That's what you do when you see someone stranded in the middle of nowhere. But something stopped me. Something felt wrong. As I got within maybe 30 feet of the man, he stopped waving. He just stood there, perfectly still, staring at my truck. And that's when I saw his face. It was my face. Same beard, same haircut, same everything. He was me. I screamed and swerved, nearly losing control of the truck. When I looked in my side mirror, the figure was gone. Just vanished. The road behind me was empty. My CB crackled again. "You should have stopped," my voice said. But this time it didn't sound amused. It sounded angry. "I wanted to talk to you. We have so much in common." I grabbed the CB and threw it across the cab. It hit the passenger window and clattered to the floor, still crackling with static. I could hear my voice coming from it, muffled now but still talking. "You can't run from yourself. I know where you're going. I know where you live." I pushed my truck as fast as it would go, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't real. I was tired, that's all. I was hallucinating from exhaustion. But the CB kept talking, my voice getting angrier and angrier. "I'm right behind you. Check your mirror. I'm in the back seat. I'm in the sleeper cab. I'm everywhere you are because I am you." I didn't look in the mirror. I couldn't. If I looked and saw myself sitting in the back seat, I think I would have driven off the road and ended it right there. Instead, I kept my eyes locked forward and drove. I drove for 3 straight hours without stopping, even though my bladder was screaming and my legs were cramping. I didn't stop until I reached a truck stop just outside of Salt Lake City. There were lights, people, other trucks. Safety. I jumped out of my truck and immediately checked the back. The sleeper cab was empty. Of course it was. I grabbed the CB radio from where it had fallen and checked it. It was off. The power button was in the off position. But I had heard my voice coming from it for hours. I threw it in a dumpster. I didn't care how much it cost to replace. I never wanted to see that thing again. I went inside the truck stop and ordered coffee, my hand still shaking. An older trucker at the counter noticed and asked if I was okay. I told him what happened, expecting him to laugh or tell me I was crazy. He didn't. His face went pale and he leaned in close. "Highway 50?" he asked. I nodded. He shook his head slowly. "You're not the first. There's something out there. Nobody knows what it is, but it copies people. Mimics them. Some guys say it's trying to learn how to be human. Others think it's hunting." I asked him what happens if it catches you. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at his coffee for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Nobody knows. The drivers who stop when it tells them to stop? They're never seen again. But their trucks are found later, abandoned on the side of the road. And sometimes, other truckers report seeing those same drivers walking along the highway, trying to wave people down. But when you get close, their faces are all wrong. Like a mask that doesn't fit right. I haven't driven Highway 50 since that night. I don't care if it adds 4 hours to my route. I'll take the long way around. Because I know that thing is still out there, standing on the side of the road in the darkness, wearing faces it's stolen. And every time a trucker stops to help, it learns a little bit more about how to be human. One day, it's going to learn enough. And then it won't need the lonely highways anymore. But here's what really keeps me up at night. Last week, I was at a rest stop in Wyoming. I was washing my hands in the bathroom when I heard someone in the stall behind me. The door was closed, but I could hear breathing. Then a voice came from inside the stall. My voice. "I finally found you again," it said. I ran out of that bathroom so fast I almost broke the door off its hinges. I didn't stop running until I was back in my truck with the doors locked. I started the engine and got back on the highway. As I was merging, I looked in my rearview mirror. Standing in the parking lot, watching me drive away, was a figure in trucker clothes. Even from that distance, I could tell. It was wearing my face. And it was smiling. Story 5. The passengers I didn't pick up. Let me tell you about the night I learned that some hitchhikers don't need you to stop for them to get in your truck. I'm a long-haul trucker, been doing this for 8 years. I mostly run routes through the Midwest and Great Plains. It's good work, decent pay, and I like the solitude. Or at least I did, until this happened. It was mid-January, dead of winter. I was hauling frozen goods from Omaha to Chicago. The weather was brutal, one of those nights where the cold cuts right through you and the roads are slick with black ice. Visibility was terrible. The snow was coming down in thick sheets, and I had to keep my speed down to about 40 miles per hour just to stay safe. I'd been on the road for about 6 hours, and I was still 3 hours from my destination. Around 1 a.m., I passed a rest area. I thought about stopping to use the bathroom and grab some coffee, but the parking lot looked completely abandoned. There were no other trucks, no cars, nothing. Just a single flickering streetlight that made the whole place look like a scene from a horror movie. I decided to push on and stop at the next rest area instead. About 10 minutes down the road, I started feeling weird. It's hard to describe, but it was like that feeling you get when someone's watching you. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I got this cold sensation in my gut. I checked my mirrors, but there was nothing behind me. The road was empty. I turned up the heat in the cab, thinking maybe I was just cold, but the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it got stronger. Then I heard it. A whisper. So quiet I almost thought I imagined it. It was coming from behind me, from the sleeper cab. I whipped my head around, but the curtain was closed. I reached back and yanked it open. Empty. Of course it was empty. I was alone in the truck. I'd been alone since I left Omaha. But that feeling of being watched was overwhelming now, so strong it made my skin crawl. I tried to focus on the road, told myself I was just tired and paranoid. But then I heard it again. Whispering. Multiple voices this time, overlapping each other. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but they sounded urgent, desperate. And they were definitely coming from inside my truck. I turned on the interior lights, flooding the cab with harsh fluorescent light. Nothing. I was completely alone. That's when I felt it. A hand on my shoulder. Cold, so cold it felt like someone had pressed an ice pack against my skin. I screamed and jerked the wheel, nearly sending the truck into a ditch. I slammed on the brakes and came to a stop in the middle of the highway. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. I jumped out of the driver's seat and checked the entire truck, the cab, the sleeper, everything. There was nobody there. I was alone. I got back in the driver's seat, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. I needed to get off this highway. I needed to get somewhere with lights and people. I put the truck in gear and started driving again, faster now, pushing 50 even though the roads were dangerous. I didn't care. I just needed to get away from whatever was in my truck. But it wasn't over. As I drove, I started seeing things in my peripheral vision. Shadows moving in the sleeper cab. Figures sitting in the passenger seat that vanished when I turned to look at them directly. And the whispering got louder, more insistent. I could almost make out words now. Let us out. Please. Let us out. My blood ran cold. Let them out. Let who out? I hadn't picked up anyone. There was nobody in my truck. Then I remembered something. That rest area I'd passed. For just a split second as I drove by, I'd seen people in the parking lot. 3 or 4 figures, standing near the entrance, watching my truck pass. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Just people taking a break. But now, as I thought about it more, something was wrong with what I'd seen. Those people had been standing in a line, perfectly still, not moving at all. And they'd all been staring directly at my truck as I passed. The whispering in my truck got louder, and now I could hear what they were saying clearly. You drove past us. You left us there. But we got in anyway. We're always getting in. I felt another hand on my shoulder, then another on my neck. icy cold fingers that felt like they were made of frozen mist. I screamed and swerved again, this time actually hitting a snowbank on the side of the road. The truck lurched to a stop. I was sobbing now, tears streaming down my face. I grabbed my phone and called 911, but before anyone answered, I felt something brush against my ear. A woman's voice whispered directly into it, so close I could feel breath that wasn't there. "We died at that rest stop. Froze to death waiting for help. And now we ride with truckers who won't stop. We're cold. So cold. Can you feel how cold we are?" That's when I understood. The temperature in my cab had been dropping for the last 20 minutes. Despite having the heat cranked all the way up, I could see my breath now. Frost was forming on the inside of the windows. And in that frost, I could see handprints. Dozens of them, all over the windows and windshield. Small hands, like children's hands. The 911 operator was asking me what my emergency was, but I couldn't speak. I just stared at those handprints, watching as more appeared, like invisible children were pressing their hands against the glass from inside the cab. The whispering voices were all around me now, begging, pleading. "Let us out. We want to go home. Please. It's so cold." I did the only thing I could think of. I opened all the doors of the truck, the driver's door, the passenger door, even kicked open the sleeper cab emergency exit. "Get out!" I screamed into the empty cab. "Go! Leave me alone!" For a moment, nothing happened. Then I felt a rush of air, colder than anything I'd ever experienced, blast through the truck. It was like standing in front of an open freezer. The handprints on the windows started to fade, slowly disappearing one by one. And the whispering stopped. I sat there in the snow, the doors of my truck wide open, sobbing uncontrollably. After about 10 minutes, when I finally calmed down enough to move, I got out and checked the truck. The temperature inside was normal again. The frost on the windows was gone. And I was alone. Truly alone this time. I could feel it. I closed all the doors and got back on the road, driving straight through to Chicago without stopping once. When I got there, I told my dispatcher I was taking a week off. I didn't explain why, and he didn't ask. He could probably tell from my voice that something had happened. Later, I did some research on that rest area. Turns out, 15 years ago, a family got stranded there during a blizzard. A mother and her 3 kids. They were waiting for help, but by the time anyone found them, they'd frozen to death in their car. The rest area was closed for a few years after that, but eventually they reopened it. Drivers report strange things there all the time. Cold spots, whispers, shadows. But most of them just laugh it off and keep driving. I don't drive that route anymore. I've told my dispatcher to take me off any runs that go through that part of Nebraska. He thinks I'm superstitious. I don't care. Because I know what I felt in that truck. I know those hands on my shoulders were real. And I know that if I drive past that rest area again, they'll get in my truck again. And next time, they might not leave. Story 6, the rest stop where time stops. I'm going to tell you about a rest stop that shouldn't exist, and I'm going to tell you why you should never, ever stop there if you see it. I don't expect you to believe me. Hell, I barely believe it myself, and I lived through it. But this is true, every word. I swear on my kids' lives. This happened 2 years ago, late August. I was driving from Phoenix to Seattle with a load of electronics. It's a long haul, about 20 hours if you push it, and I was trying to make it in 2 days. I'd been on the road for about 12 hours, and I was getting tired. My eyes were getting heavy, and I knew I needed to stop and rest before I fell asleep at the wheel and killed someone. It was around 11 p.m., and I was somewhere in Oregon, on one of those long, empty stretches of highway that seemed to go on forever. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. I was starting to look for a rest stop or a truck stop, anywhere I could pull over and catch a few hours of sleep, when I saw a sign. Rest area 1 mile. Perfect timing. A mile later, I pulled off the highway onto the access road. The rest area was small, just a parking lot, a bathroom building, and a couple of picnic tables. There were no other vehicles in the parking lot, which wasn't surprising given how late it was and how empty the highway had been. I pulled my truck into a parking spot, shut off the engine, and just sat there for a minute, feeling the tension drain out of my shoulders. That's when I noticed how quiet it was. Not just quiet. Silent. Completely, absolutely silent. No crickets, no wind, no distant traffic noise from the highway. Nothing. It was like someone had pressed a mute button on the world. I've driven through some quiet places in my time, but this was different. This was wrong. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was tired, that's all. I grabbed my flashlight and got out of the truck, planning to use the bathroom and then crash in the sleeper cab. The air was cool, and there was a strange smell, like ozone, like right before a lightning storm. I walked toward the bathroom building, my footsteps echoing weirdly in the silence. The bathroom was one of those standard rest area bathrooms, concrete block building, fluorescent lights, metal stalls. Except when I pushed open the door, the lights were off. I fumbled for a light switch, found one, and flipped it. Nothing happened. The power was out, I guess. I used my flashlight instead, and that's when I noticed something odd. There was a layer of dust on everything. Thick dust, like nobody had been in this bathroom in years. But the rest area sign had looked new, and the parking lot had been well maintained. I did my business quickly and got out of there. The silence was starting to really creep me out. As I walked back to my truck, I noticed something I hadn't seen when I arrived. There was another vehicle in the parking lot. An old pickup truck, parked at the far end. I was sure it hadn't been there when I pulled in. I would have noticed it. But there it was, a beat-up Ford pickup from the 1980s, covered in rust and dust. I walked over to it, curious. Maybe another driver had pulled in while I was in the bathroom. But as I got closer, I saw that the truck was old. Not just old-looking, but genuinely old. The tires were flat and rotted. The windows were covered in grime. This truck had been sitting here for years, maybe decades. But how had I not seen it when I drove in? That's when I saw the driver. There was someone sitting in the driver's seat, visible through the grimy window. A man, slumped forward, his head resting on the steering wheel. My heart jumped into my throat. "Hey!" I called out, knocking on the window. "Hey, are you okay?" The man didn't move. I tried the door handle. Locked. I knocked harder. "Sir, are you all right?" Still nothing. I pressed my face against the window, trying to get a better look. That's when I saw his clothes. He was wearing a trucker's jacket from a company I'd never heard of. And his hair was styled in a way nobody had worn since the 1970s. But the worst part was his skin. It was gray, mummified, stretched tight over his skull like leather. This man was dead. Had been dead for a long time. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering. I needed to call the police. I pulled out my phone, but there was no signal. Of course there wasn't. I ran back to my truck, planning to drive to the nearest town and report this. But when I got there, I stopped dead in my tracks. There was a third vehicle in the parking lot now. An old RV, parked right next to my truck. And I absolutely knew, that it hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. I stood there, frozen, staring at the RV. The door was open, swinging slightly in a breeze I couldn't feel. Inside, I could see movement. Shadows shifting in the darkness. And I heard something. Voices. Whispering voices, coming from inside the RV. They were saying the same thing, over and over. "Don't leave. Stay. Join us. Don't leave." That's when I realized what was happening. This rest area was a trap. Everyone who stopped here got stuck here. That trucker in the old Ford had stopped here decades ago and never left. The people in the RV had stopped here, and they never left. And if I didn't get out now, I'd never leave either. I ran for my truck, fumbling with the keys. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped them. I could hear footsteps behind me, slow and shuffling. I didn't look back. I got the door open, jumped inside, and turned the key. The engine roared to life, and I threw it in gear, slamming my foot on the gas. As I pulled out of the parking spot, I made the mistake of looking in my rearview mirror. The parking lot was full now. Dozens of vehicles, cars, trucks, RVs, all old and rusted and abandoned. And standing among them were people. Drivers who had stopped here and never left. They were all watching me drive away, their faces gray and sunken, their clothes rotting off their bodies. And they all had the same expression on their faces. Anger. Pure, undiluted anger that I was escaping when they couldn't. I gunned the engine and tore out of that rest area, my tires screaming. I got back on the highway and didn't stop driving until I was 200 miles away. When the sun came up and I finally felt safe enough to pull over at a normal rest stop, I looked at my phone. According to my GPS, I'd been at that rest area for 15 minutes. But according to my watch, I'd been there for 3 hours. Time moved differently there. And if I'd stayed any longer, I don't think I would have been able to leave at all. I tried to report it to the police, but when I described where the rest area was, they told me there was no rest area on that stretch of highway. They checked their maps and databases. Nothing. It didn't exist. But I know it was real. I have the memory of it burned into my brain. And sometimes, late at night when I'm driving through empty stretches of highway, I see signs for rest areas and I don't stop. Because I'm terrified that one day, I'll pull off the highway and find myself back at that place, and this time, I won't be able to leave. Story 7. The Girl on the Side of the Road. This story still gives me nightmares, and it happened 5 years ago. I was running a delivery route from Tulsa to Kansas City. It was October, late in the month, getting close to Halloween. The weather was miserable, cold rain coming down in sheets, the kind that makes it hard to see more than a few feet in front of you. I was taking back roads to avoid construction on the interstate, and I was starting to regret that decision. It was around 9 p.m., pitch black except for my headlights cutting through the rain. I hadn't passed another vehicle in over 30 minutes. These were rural roads, nothing but farmland and forest on either side, no houses, no streetlights, nothing. I was starting to feel very alone out there, and I kept thinking I should turn around and get back on the interstate, traffic be damned. That's when I saw her. A little girl, standing on the side of the road. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, wearing a white dress that was soaked through from the rain. Her hair was plastered to her face, and she was barefoot. She wasn't waving or calling for help. She was just standing there, perfectly still, staring at my truck as I approached. My first thought was pure panic. What was a little girl doing out here in the middle of nowhere, in a rainstorm, in the middle of the night? She must have been in trouble. Maybe there'd been a car accident and she was the only survivor. Maybe she'd wandered away from home and gotten lost. Whatever the reason, I knew I had to help her. I slowed the truck to a stop about 20 feet from where she was standing. I put on my hazard lights and grabbed my jacket from the passenger seat, planning to run out and bring her into the truck where it was warm and dry. But as I opened the door, something made me hesitate. The girl hadn't moved. She was still standing in the exact same position, staring at my truck with an expression I couldn't quite read. I called out to her. "Hey, are you okay? Are you hurt?" She didn't respond. Didn't even acknowledge that she'd heard me. She just kept staring. I stepped out of the truck, the rain immediately soaking through my clothes. "Sweetie, where are your parents? Let me help you." Still nothing. She just stared. I started walking toward her, moving slowly so I wouldn't scare her. As I got closer, I could see her face more clearly in the light from my truck. And that's when I realized something was very, very wrong. Her expression wasn't scared or confused or relieved. It was blank. Completely blank, like a doll's face. No emotion at all. And her eyes. Her eyes were too dark. Not brown, not black, just dark, like looking into empty holes. I stopped walking. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to get back in the truck. But I couldn't just leave a little girl out here. Could I? I called out to her again. Are you lost? Can you tell me your name? She tilted her head to the side, still staring at me with those empty eyes. And then she smiled. It was the most unnatural smile I've ever seen, too wide, stretching from ear to ear like her face was made of rubber. Will you play with me? She asked. Her voice was wrong too, flat and emotionless, like she was reading from a script. My blood ran cold. Everything about this situation felt wrong. This wasn't a lost little girl. This was something else. Something pretending to be a little girl. I took a step backward, and that's when she moved. Not walked, moved. 1 second she was standing 10 feet away, and the next second she was right in front of me, so close I could have touched her. I didn't see her cross the distance. She just appeared there, that horrible smile still plastered across her face. Play with me, she said again, reaching out toward me with one pale hand. I stumbled backward, falling on my ass in the mud. She leaned over me, her face coming closer, and I could smell something rotten, like meat that had been left out in the sun for days. Why won't you play with me? Everyone leaves. Nobody wants to play. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I don't think I've ever run that fast in my life. I could hear her behind me, not footsteps, but something else, a wet sliding sound like something being dragged through the mud. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I looked back and saw what was really chasing me, I think my mind would have broken. I reached my truck and threw myself into the driver's seat, slamming the door and locking it. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped them. Finally, I got the engine started. I looked up, and she was standing right in front of the truck, her face pressed against the windshield, that smile even wider now, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too many. I threw the truck in reverse and hit the gas, backing up so fast I almost went off the road. She watched me go, not moving, still smiling. I got the truck turned around and drove away as fast as I could, not caring about the rain or the slick roads or anything except getting away from whatever that thing was. I drove for 2 hours straight without stopping, until I reached a truck stop outside of Kansas City. I sat in the parking lot with all the doors locked, too terrified to get out, until the sun came up. When there was finally daylight and people around, I felt safe enough to go inside and get coffee. I tried to convince myself that I'd imagined it, that I'd been tired and the rain and the darkness had played tricks on my mind. But I knew what I'd seen. That thing was real. And the way it moved, the way it appeared right in front of me, I knew it wasn't human. It was something else, something that lived out on those empty roads, waiting for people to stop and help the little girl on the side of the road. A few months later, I was at a truck stop in Missouri, and I overheard 2 other drivers talking. One of them was telling a story about seeing a little girl on a back road in Oklahoma, standing in the rain, looking lost. He said he'd stopped to help her, but when he got close, she'd smiled at him and asked him to play. He said something about her didn't feel right, so he'd gotten back in his truck and left. The other driver said he'd heard similar stories from drivers all over the Midwest. A little girl in a white dress, standing on empty roads at night, asking people to play with her. Nobody knows what she is. Some people think she's a ghost, the spirit of a child who died on one of these roads. Others think she's something older, something that's been out here for a long time, using the shape of a little girl to lure people close. Whatever she is, she's still out there. And if you're driving on a back road late at night and you see a little girl standing on the side of the road, do yourself a favor. Don't stop. Don't try to help her. Just keep driving. Because if you stop, she'll ask you to play. And if you say yes, nobody will ever see you again.